Hey, how's it going? It's question, just like the word question, but without an I. All right. So, want to get. Hopefully, I'm not too loud here. I got my microphone right next to me. But again, this is question, just like the word question, but without the word I. So, a funny thing happened at work today. For the past 2 weeks, and I work with civilian. I'm an active duty soldier in the army. I work with civilians. So my direct supervisor is a civilian. My direct coworker is a civilian and my supervisor is a civilian. We have a what we call a green suitor, so a soldier, a master sergeant, who's on our floor, who keeps track of things, but he's not my rating supervisor or anything of that nature. Now, a funny thing happened. There was a big hubbub in the last few weeks with the civilians. The Doge has been happening to a lot of people in the civilian workforce. it's it's interesting to me to watch it happen because like I've been saying for a long time, this is not dissimilar from the sequester. If not too many people will know this or remember this, but the sequester that happened under Obama's term, I believe it was back in 2012. During that time, and I've mentioned this to all the civilians that'll listen. During that time, they sent civilians home. I think the big difference now is during that time, a lot of the during the sequester time, a lot of the civilian workforce knew that there at some point they were going to come back. And with this time, I think a lot of the civilian force, there is an underlying fear that they're going to be fired, right? Or let go or forcibly retired or whatever you want to call it. Which good, bad, indifferent, ugly, whatever you want to call it, it is a thing, right? Under DOD, there's a process, and we're all soldiers ultimately, right? Even the civilian workforce, although they're not actually soldiers, they have to they are given marching orders just like soldiers would be given marching orders as well, and they have to proceed as given. So is what it is, no big deal. But then that just gets me to thinking, like, man, this is so all of that's been going on for the past couple of weeks. Today, which was so weird, the last hour of the day, we get or my supervisor comes and walks into my section and says, "Hey, the email that you all as civilians just sent out talking about the 5 things you did last week or whatever it is they were requesting, you all need to resend that email." Or I think that was it, what he was telling them, because I'm just listening. I'm not civilian, so I don't. It doesn't pertain to me. But what he was saying to them was, "Listen, the signature block says Fort Moore, Georgia. We are no longer Fort Moore, Georgia." Listen, I cannot make this up. Fort Benning, Georgia underwent a name change last year, and they named it after an honorable man. Now, you may have never seen the movie We Were Soldiers, or you may have seen the movie, but you don't know the story behind it. But I was not in the ceremony, but I was at the ceremony, and I actually got a chance to hear the history and the story of Hal and Julia Moore, and see their son be there and be honored, you know, in their absence because they've passed on. And it's a beautiful story. If you don't know the story, research Hal and Julia Moore. But Mel Gibson, of course, who played the character in the movie We Were Soldiers, he as a person couldn't hold a candle to who the man Hal Moore was. But then also Julia Moore, I don't think her story is in that. I don't. It might have been. I don't really remember. I seen it a long time ago, but I'm not for sure if her story is actually in that movie as well. But she did great things. But for them to say, "Hey, you know what? Whatever. Biden is the one that started it, so we don't like it anymore." It's just like, ugh. So apparently, we're going to go back to Fort Benning. Be that as it may, it is what it is. But that got me to thinking about DEI versus what the Army calls OML. Now, a lot of people may not know this, but the Army we've been on this system, I think, since 2016. I may be incorrect around the year, but I think we went to the OML system in 2016, meaning it's an order of merit list, right? So your promotions are going to be based on, so you go to the board and you're promotable but your actual promotion number one through however many people. So as 11 Charlie, it's like 400 of us or whatever, but you're number one through 400, and the order of merit determines who gets promoted next. And in theory, it works, right? It's the best are going to get the promotion, and that's what you want to see. But I think about that, and it reminded me on my way home from work. I almost cried a little bit because I reflected on this time when I was in Iraq on patrol. And I'm an infantryman. I'm an indirect fire infantryman. I'm a mortarman. However, during the surge period, we're not dropping rounds. We did at certain periods of that deployment, but during this period, we were patrolling on foot, sometimes in vehicles. And I remember I had learned and gotten really good at rear security. Again, this is foot patrol, right? So with rear security on foot patrol, you're supposed to walk about 3 to 5 steps. You turn around, you're walking backwards, but you're securing the rear of the formation. And because you're rear security, that means there's nobody behind you. There's no other unit. There's no other squad, team, nothing. It's you. We got a new guy midway through this deployment, and he was a new guy. He didn't know a lot. He was learning on the go, on the job training. And we had placed him in the position of rear security. And I remember my PL, my platoon leader, right, the officer in the group, he said, "Hey, Van Zandt, I need you to teach this guy how to do rear security, da da da." Did it, done it. He learned. He was picking it up, but he didn't really understand how to really focus in doing it, right? So, whatever the case may be, maybe he didn't get the training before, or I don't know what, but he wasn't as great as what the platoon leader wanted to see. And I remember on this particular day, we were doing it was supposed to be a quick patrol. It wasn't going to be long. And my platoon leader said, "Hey, I don't want him doing rear security. You're going to have to train him up some more. I need you to take rear security today." And so he took my spot, which was second to last. I was last in the formation on the patrol. And I remember as we were walking, we doing our regular patrol, going through the streets of Baghdad. Sadia was the neighborhood. And we got blew up, right? In no other way to say it. IED hit us. It was supposed to be a daisy chain IED. Only one of the IEDs went off, thank God, by the grace of God. And 2 of my friends went down. And 2 of my friends that went down, one, he took the brunt of it. And the second one was the hero that wasn't trained up enough to be able to do rear security. And it's like, well, how can you say this? Listen, don't talk to me about DEI or OML or anything like that, or meritocracy or whatever you want to call it, until you've actually suffered the survivor's guilt of, I know this job better and I should be in this position. However, because I'm in this position, I had to see my friend go down, getting hurt, and all of this stuff that went on. For a long time, I suffered for that.